Hello. Hey, I think that I'm here. It says that I'm on air. Shows that I'm live. If you can see me, over on the right-hand side of the window is a chat window. You can just type, "Hey, I see you." That would be awesome and helpful. I'm trying to see really quick who is here. Give me 1 second just to get clear on serve. All right, cool. I wonder who my active user is. I see someone on there. I haven't quite been able to figure out how to tell who that is. Anyway, welcome to tonight's Crowdcast. My name is Allegra, Allegra Stein. You probably found this through my website. You can find out about all the conscious talks at allegrastein.com/conscious talks. I am a coach, a life coach out here in New York, and I decided a few weeks ago to start showing up every week, same time, same place, and serving my community and whoever wanted to be here with these live talks. So I pick a different topic every week. It's a different theme. This week it's about the struggle we have with saying no. And I really invite you to engage a little bit about Crowdcast. If you have a question while you're watching, if you're watching live, 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday night, and a question comes up during the conversation, please type it in the space below where it says questions and topics. There is also a chat window on the right-hand side that you can chat with each other. I just want to let you know that there's a 20-second delay. So if questions come up and you type them there, I don't want it to feel awkward if you think I'm not acknowledging you, because the timing is just a little bit off. So if you're here live, ask your questions in the space below. If you're watching a replay, ask your questions in the chat window on the right, because I will continue to kind of follow up and just see if anyone has shared anything that they'd like a response to. So that's just a little bit of housekeeping. This podcast will live at this website once it's complete. So if while you're watching, you can think of someone who would enjoy it or you think would be served by this kind of work and this conversation, please just send the link directly to them and invite them to watch. I would love that. In fact, like I said, these talks that I'm giving are free. There is no pitch, there is no sale. Really, all I ask for is that you share it. Share the links, invite people to watch. If you are local, I also do it live in Warwick, New York on Wednesday mornings, and I hope someday you can make it to one of those. But all the details, again, are at the main website, allegrastein.com/conscious talks. So let's see. Hello, Christine. Awesome. So I'm glad you can see me. This is great. All right. Any more housekeeping? I don't think so. Questions below, other comments to the side. I'm so glad you're here. Okay, so the topic tonight is around the struggle we have with saying no. And this was a common one that came up during last week's Conscious Talk when I was talking about micro actions. And one of the participants at my live event said, well, there are just too many options and I can't say no to any of them. And I really challenged him on that. The idea that why? What is it that keeps us from saying no? And that's going to be my next topic. So what I want to do tonight is I'm doing things a bit differently. I'm going to do a screen share. So I made a really cool slideshow, and I'm going to start that and hope that it works a-okay. And I'm going to go over some of the reasons why we have such a hard time saying no, because I polled my community and I got some really awesome answers. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of context around where my answers come from. So a little just background stuff about me and to clarify kind of some of the core foundational beliefs that I come from when I'm coaching and talking about these things. And then I'm just going to address head on some direct strategies, some mind ninja stuff to help you reframe what it means to say no, especially if you struggle with it and you find yourself saying yes a lot and you'd rather not. Oh, you like that little poem? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on the share. Let me just make sure there aren't any questions that have popped up at all in the Q&A. Nope, nothing yet. Okay, cool. So let me turn on the screen share. Make sure I can do this all right. Where is it? Boop. Screen share. I believe that I want, hold on one second. Google Plus Hangouts, Conscious Talks. I think that's the one I want. You're screen sharing, so let me find it here. Hold on. That's the beginning of my me. Okay. Hopefully you can see this. Let me just take a look. Yes, it looks like you can. All right, great. Okay. So the topic tonight is sharing your screen with Talk Gadget. Cool. The topic tonight is the struggle with no. I am Allegra Stein. And again, you can find all the most recent and the most current Conscious Talk subjects and topics at the allegrastein.com/conscious talks. And you can send people there who you think would enjoy future talks. So the first thing that I really wanted to find out or explore was the things we say yes to. And I think we all know that most of the things we say yes to fall into the categories of other people and their requests of us. This can be a very easy one to fall into of just saying yes a lot. We say yes to opportunities. So one of the things that came up this morning was, oh, they needed an assistant coach for my daughter's track team. And I just said yes. So these opportunities come up and we just jump on them, sometimes without even thinking about it first. And we also say yes to our own bad habits. So, we say we're not going to have a nightly beer, and then all of a sudden we're saying yes to the beer, even though we were just saying we wanted to say no to it. Now, the next thing I wanted to find out is, well, why is saying no so hard? Or in other words, why do we keep saying yes? And there were some reasons that really jumped out at me when I asked people this question. The main one, the one that really triggered people was this fear or this worry about what other people are going to think or feel or do if I say no to them, if we say no to their request. I'm worried they're going to feel disappointed if I say no. I'm worried someone's going to feel hurt, that I'm going to hurt somebody if I say no to them, that they're going to feel let down. Or so somebody even said that they will leave, that if I say no, they're going to just feel all these negative emotions and then they're going to leave. So this was a big one. About at least 75% of the respondents, this was their main reason, is they didn't want other people to feel something as a result of them saying no to them. The second reason was this idea of what no means and what no says about me when I say it. So if I say no, it means that I'm selfish. Or if I say no to this request, it means that I'm not helpful or I'm not agreeable. So again, these stories we have about what no means can really stop us from saying it, even though we want to. Someone kind of suggested that and I say we think we don't know what we want. I come from a position that if we slow down and really listen, we all know what we want. So, but if we think we don't know what we want, we might ask ourselves when presented with options and choices like, well, what are my priorities? I don't know, so I shouldn't say no to any of them. Or I don't know which one of these is a clear opportunity for growth, so I can't say no to anything. And then I ask this question, is it a 10? And I'm going to talk about 10s in another slide coming up. But this question of is it a 10 is pretty important, and not knowing what a 10 feels like. I wonder if I can hide this. Oh, I'll just leave it there. Okay. Another reason we don't say no is we're worried we'll make a wrong choice, or we think that we don't even have a choice. And that can be especially when we have jobs that we don't like. It's super easy to fall into the trap of like, well, I have to do this. I can't not. There is no choice. I cannot say no to this. And I might mix that up a little bit for you tonight. Or we're worried we'll make a wrong choice. Like, well, if I say no, and what if I wish I'd said yes? So that stops us as well. Finally, we have like these deeper stories that we tell ourselves about what no means. There's guilt, like I should say it, or I could say it. I could say no, but then I'm going to feel real guilty because I should have said yes. I don't have a choice. That's another very powerful story. This makes me a selfish person by saying no. And even just the topic of being selfish is one that we could spend a whole session on, because I really like the topic of being selfish. We're worried about regret. Like, I'm going to regret it if I don't say yes to this thing. I'm afraid of the results. So we can really get into this fear place in the future of like, well, if I say no, then this, and this is going to happen. And I don't want that to happen. So there's fear around it, or fear of missing out, FOMO. Like, well, what if I say no and then I really wish I had? So again, this future thinking. And that last point really highlights what is at the heart of so much of our resistance to saying no to things, and that is fear. Fear of what other people are going to think, fear of what it's going to say about us, fear of how people are going to feel, fear that we might make a wrong decision, or fear of the future. Fear could be at the heart of almost every one of these talks ultimately, and what holds us back from speaking our truth. Now, a warning, a little bit. Oh, the warning is that this could be challenging. The stuff I want to share with you tonight could just be a little bit uncomfortable, or you might want to say something to me like, yeah, Allegra, you just don't get it. No one's really said that to me. Well, a few people have said that to me, but I can tell when I'm talking with someone and there's that resistance, they kind of turn off, like, like you just don't get it. And my response to that is I'm not here to get it. As a coach, I like to say that I'm here to serve you and not to please you. So if you said to me, yeah, like, or you don't get it, and I said, oh my gosh, I totally get it, you're right, that would be trying to please you. So I'm here in your life right now watching this to serve you in a way that challenges perhaps some of the beliefs you have, and maybe shake things up a little bit. So before I dive into some of my more concrete tips and suggestions for saying no, I just want you to understand a few things about the foundations that I'm coming from. The first thing is that I believe we are all responsible for how we feel and think. I'm responsible for my feelings and thoughts. You are responsible for your feelings and thoughts. There is no biological connection between what I do or say and how you think or feel. And in some ways, I wish that there was. The illustration I have for this is, think of someone in your life who is really struggling, who's having a very difficult time. Emotionally, they're in a bad place. And we can only wish to give them positive feelings. We wish we could help them, that we could just walk up and say something or do something and they would feel great. And when it's explained that way, it's like, dang, well, we can't do that. We've all tried and struggled with that disconnect between wanting to help someone so badly and not being able to. And yet on the flip side, that the minute someone feels bad, we assume responsibility for those negative emotions. Oh, well, it must be my fault that they feel rejected. It must be my fault that they feel alone or lonely or unworthy, or whatever feelings that a person has in response to us showing up authentically. So consider for a minute that each person as an adult is responsible for how they think and feel. Even if they don't want to admit it or go to that place, it's something very powerful to put into your little place of learning and examine. Another belief that I have is that thoughts aren't truths. And forgive the cutoff G there. I wish you could see me pointing at it. Thoughts are not truths. Truths. So what this means is that people can think whatever they want. It is not your business. If you walk in wearing your favorite shirt and someone thinks that's not a very good looking shirt, that's just what they think. It doesn't mean it's true. And similarly, what you think doesn't mean it's true. It's simply what you think. So just keep that in mind, that if you say no to someone, let's say, this is an example that came up this morning, but let's say you have planned a night for yourself to relax and unwind and commit time to an event you have the next day for your family. And at the last minute, one of your friends calls and says, oh my gosh, I'm going to this party and I'm really scared to go myself. Will you come out with me? If you say no, and your friend, maybe he or she thinks, wow, you're not a very good friend, it's just a thought. It does not mean it's true. And this is an important one when you're concerned about what other people are going to think, or how they're going to think about you if you say no to them. Finally, one of the core things that I come into the table with is that you have a choice. That anytime someone says, well, I can't say no, I can't, I very much push back into that place because sometimes we really want to believe that we don't. In some ways, it would be easier to think that we don't have a choice because then we can just keep blaming all the stuff external to us. This is really good in work, especially if a boss or manager says you need to stay after for a meeting and you feel like, no, I don't, I can't say no to him. I have to stay. That suggests that you don't have a choice when you say I have to. And it's easier to just blame your boss than to sit with the choice of like, wow, I'm choosing this meeting over going home to my family, for example. And it's really important that you hear me, that you just pay attention to what you're hearing me say, because sometimes I'll say to someone, you have a choice, but having a choice is not the same as doing a choice. So be sure not to confuse the two. When I say to you, you could choose not to go to work, I'm not saying don't go to work. All I'm suggesting is you could choose not to, and there's a lot of power in choice. So just be mindful of that. If some of the things you're saying yes to a lot, the story is, well, I can't, because that's very disempowering. It just feels crummy. You feel like a victim. So what happens when we say yes, when we really want to say no? It's quite simple. Someone or something makes a request. And step one, the true you, the part deep down and authentically who you are, that inner voice, whatever you want to call it, says, no. And in step two, your mouth says, sure. So there's this disconnect between who you really are, what you really want, and what you tell someone you really want. If you're in the habit of saying yes automatically, the reverse oftentimes happens. Step one, your mouth says, sure. And step two, your authentic true voice comes in the back and says, no. I'm sure we're all familiar with this. I have a very dear friend who was a lot of requests get made of her, and she definitely gets in this place of saying yes and then following up with, oh, why did I say yes? So, in other words, we lie. We lie. And I mean, it sounds harsh, but again, I'm here to serve you and not please you. So I hope it's shaking you up a little bit, but we say to some, we don't want to, and we say yes. And we lie because we don't want to deal with all the other stuff that's actually behind why we're holding back. And we end up feeling all kinds of crummy. We feel resentment and anger and blame and misaligned and overwhelmed and like a victim and false. And we opt in for conversations like this where we can hopefully learn a little bit more about why we're saying yes to things and feeling so badly about it when we want to really say no in a way that doesn't make us bad people. So I am going to shake things up a little bit for you. And from all of these places of understanding, I'm going to share with you now some of the strategies that you can use. You can take notes. You can come back and watch again. First, slow down. So as much as possible, try and create space between the moment someone asks something of you or you have a decision to make and actually making that decision. So instead of an immediate yes, try saying instead, can I get back to you? Try saying instead, I just need to look at my calendar. You could say, I'm not sure, I'll let you know tomorrow. Or as a good backup device, you can say, oh no, my toast is burning, I'll call you right back. There was a woman at the live talk today who really liked that. She's like, I'm just going to remember that. So if you get on the phone with someone and your friend or a boss or someone is like, oh, could you just do this for me again? And you really feel like you're about to say yes and you don't want to, try doing that one. But find a phrase that you can start using instead of saying yes right away, that you can plug in to buy yourself a little bit of time. If you are saying yes to bad habits or you're saying yes to opportunities, put almost an enforcement on yourself to not give an answer for 24 hours. If you're like, I have to get this, I have to say yes to this thing, it feels so great. Give myself 24 hours. Because if it's a true yes, it will persist. So buy yourself some time, because if you buy yourself some time, you can start examining some of these other steps. If you are worried about what other people are going to think, simply consider that what someone else thinks, sorry, there should be an S there, is neither your business nor is it true. So if your fear is like, well, if I say, my sister keeps asking me to babysit her kids and I keep saying yes and I'm angry and resentful about it. And if she calls me and says, can you babysit my kids? And I say no, and she thinks I'm a bad sister. One, realize that's just what she's choosing to think. And two, it doesn't mean it's true. Okay, so just plug that in as a possibility. Redefine what no means. So rather than saying to yourself, well, if I say no, I'm selfish, or if I say no, I'm a bad person, what if no is just a piece of information? Not wanting what someone else wants is okay. I call it the ice cream principle. If you and I went out to ice cream and you loved vanilla and said, I love vanilla, can I get you some vanilla? And I said, no, thanks. That would be it. No, thanks. I like chocolate. There wouldn't be anything personal. There'd be no affront. Like no one would feel insulted. It's just a piece of information. And the no's we give to other people to whatever request are just pieces of information. It's the people that make it personal. It's us that make it personal in this big story around what no means. So I want you to consider, what if can no be selfless? Are there opportunities when you can say no and it's actually a selfless act? And one of the things that I like to illustrate this with is the oxygen masks on airplanes. There's a reason why they tell you to put yours on first before you put your child's mask on. And at first glance, it might be like, well, that's so selfish. If I put mine on first, shouldn't I do my kid? But then you realize, well, by putting mine on first, I can serve and love my kid even better than if I had tried to do theirs first. Can no be helpful? Can it serve somebody by saying no to them? I believe it can. Is it possible that no actually is being agreeable, perhaps in a different way? Can no be loving? Can you say no and still love somebody? I think I know that the answer is yes. It just takes some reframing. So I want you to consider that maybe my story about what no means is wrong and I need to redefine it. Consider, for those of you who struggle with no because you just don't know if you want it or not, so you don't want to say no because it's a maybe, consider that you actually know what you want, you just aren't listening. Like I said before, I come into all of my coaching conversations really believing that you and only you know what you most want. We just have lost touch with what that voice sounds and feels like. So how much of what you're choosing is based on what you want, like what you really, really want? And how many of your choices are built around, well, I should do this, I must do this, I have to do this. Again, that wrangles in that whole idea of choice and that we don't really have any. There's a book called Only Tens. It's a recent release. It's by a guy named Mark Silverman. I wish there were hard copies. I'm trying to find out from him how I can get my hands on some, but for now it's just digital. And he very elegantly explains this idea of saying yes to only 10. And it's a pretty simple concept, but the 10s are the things that are no-brainers, the things that get you out of bed in the morning, the things that light you up, that you truly are like, this is the thing that I desire. A 10 is not a 9.9. A 10 is not a 9. So maybe ask yourself, am I saying yes to a lot of things that are not 10s? Am I saying yes to 9s and to 9.9s and to 5s? And could I start maybe saying no to some of those so that I can be giving authentic yeses to the 10s that I really be focusing on? And look for true feelings of want in your life. So if you really have lost touch with, well, what does it even feel like to want something? Practice small things. Practice wanting what you already have. When you sit down with the sundae or the cup of ice cream, say, oh, I want this ice cream. And just feel that, like what it feels like. If you're about to hop in a hot shower when you're not feeling so good, say, oh, this is what want feels like. I want this hot shower and I have it. Excellent. So you can start to notice those feelings when you're facing decisions that feel a little bit murky, like, around each of these, do I have that kind of feeling? And you can move forward on saying yes to that and no to the others. Again, tied into a lot of this is notice the story you have about no. Honor that story because it's a part of who you are, and then challenge it. There is an amazing woman, her name is Byron Katie. She practices and teaches something called The Work, and you can find it at thework.com. And when you identify kind of what your story is about no, so let's say again, going back to that example of the friend who wants you to abandon your plans for personal time and go to this party with her so she feels better. And you say to yourself, oh my gosh, if I say no, it means I'm not a good friend. The very first question that Byron Katie walks you through is this true? And this is really that moment of challenging what your belief is and what your story is. And there's a series of, there's 3 other questions that follow that. And I invite you to look at the site so you can really learn a lot about that structure. But it's a way of challenging our beliefs so that they kind of become untangled and we realize, oh, like, well, is it true that I'm not a good friend? No. So what is it exactly that's keeping you from saying no? Try turning your shoulds into coulds. So if one of your reasons is, well, I should do that, I always like to replace should with could. You could, because could is C, and C stands for choice. And there it is, apply choice to the decisions that you're making. Explore all the options. This one came up today in my live talk. It wasn't even in the slides before I went, and this was super cool. One of the participants there, participant feels so sterile, just one of the awesome people that was there this morning, had a mentor reach out to her and request her assistance for something. And she was very uncomfortable with the idea of saying no, because it's very easy to see yes and no as like black and white. Like, well, if I say no, that means I'm not helping. And it reminded me of this picture that I talk about I call it the grayscale, and this idea that it's very rarely just a clear-cut answer. So I said to her, I'm like, what if you can say no to him, but it can be a different kind of response? What if it's not just no or yes? Yes, I'll help you, or no, I will not help you. What if there's something in between? What if you could say, you know what? I can't do it at this time because of where I'm at and the things that I'm working on. And I also would want to be 100% in, and I want you to have someone who's 100% on your team. And I have some amazing people in mind, and I'd love to support you in other ways. Can we talk about it? So it's no, but with options. So it's not just, no, I can't. I suspect that some of the things that you would like to say no to or have said yes to that you wish you hadn't, there are ways that you can create a loving answer, but that is a bit more diverse than just, no, I will not do it. And now, from the final note, and I'm coming to the end, this is what I'm calling the big kahuna, the one that really shifted my mind around what saying no and yes really means, is saying yes to something is saying no. They are the exact same things. Because when you say yes to one thing, you are, by proxy, thank you to Alice for giving me that phrase, saying no to another. So when you say yes to the last minute meeting, you are saying no to going home to your family. When you say yes to the cousin who always needs your help babysitting, you are saying no to whatever you would have created and done for yourself in your free time. When you say yes to an impulse buy of a handbag, you are saying no to the other things you might have been more creative about investing your money into. So we are actually great at saying no. We're all really, really good at saying no. So none of you hopefully can tell me at this point, oh, I'm terrible at saying no. You're really good at saying no. We just usually say it to ourselves. And this is an important thing. If you walk away from this talk with just one idea, it's this one, that every yes has a no on the other side. And flipping that, every time we say no, it's because we're saying yes to something else. So here is your action for the evening and what I would love for you to do as a result of this talk. These talks are great. If you stick around for all of it, awesome. I think you're going to learn a lot. I'm excited to share it with you. I don't want you getting off of this saying, that was nice. My goal in all of my work, with every conversation I have with a client, with someone I've connected with these talks, is that you somehow have changed a little bit and you go out and try something different than if you hadn't here. That is where the results are going to show up. That's where you're going to get to experiment and learn and stretch. So here's your assignment. Think of something in your life right now that you want to say no to turn down, or wish that you had turned down. And then ask yourself why you feel compelled to say yes to it, or why you felt compelled to say yes to it. And list all of your reasons and stories. So you take out a piece of paper. You say, gosh, I want to say no to this, but I really feel like I have to say yes. Here's why. It's because I want to be a good friend, because I don't want to hurt my friend's feelings, because I've got to bring home money, because I don't have choice. Like whatever the reasons are that you have behind this compulsion to say yes when your deep voice is saying no. And then run it through some of these various questions that we've just talked about. If you're worried about hurting someone's feelings, if that's one of your whys, consider that it's not your job. Just play with the idea for a second that it's not your job to manage how someone else feels or thinks. If you're telling yourself a painful story about what no will mean, challenge your story. Run it through the questions on the work. Like, really look at that. Wow, does it really mean I'm going to be a bad friend if I don't do this thing? No, that's not true. And what if I didn't believe that? What if I didn't believe it made me a bad friend? Then I'd probably just say no right away. If you're not sure what you want, if you can't say no because you're worried, well, what if this is the right thing? Be honest with yourself. Slow down and ask yourself if it is a 10. And if it's not a 10, really dig into like, well, then why am I saying yes to it? What is the fear back here and how can I shine some light onto that? If you are avoiding the consequences of no, so again, I hear this a lot around work, like, well, I can't say no, I don't have a choice. Sit with it and play it out. Are the results as catastrophic as your brain is trying to tell you, or could it actually lead into potential that you haven't considered yet? And finally, examine the other side. In fact, do this one first. If you say yes, what are you saying no to? Really dig in here and ask, is this a trade-off I truly want? And I think actually there was one more. Find the loving options. So if you get to this place and you're like, you know what, I want to say no, how can I do that? Try to say no still in service of the person you're saying no to. Like, I can't do that, but I can do this. For the friend who wants you to go to the party, say, I can't come out to the party with you, but I really want to help you tonight as much as I can. So text me every 20 minutes, let me know how it's going. Come over when you're done and let's sit and have a cup of coffee. Offer some options that feel loving and in your power. So I would love to know kind of what ends up coming up for you through this. You can submit your questions. I think I'm going to try and go back to where we're at and how I get back to my conscious talk and turning off my screen share. I'm stopping my screen share. Awesome. And I still have some of you here. This is great. And I'm curious if any questions have popped up while I was chatting. And if they have, I hope you will submit them in the space below. Oh, awesome. Crystal, you're here. And I just see your question coming up. I love that you've made it. So what I want to do now is go through some of the questions that were asked. In the meantime, if you choose to sign off, again, please, a couple of things. I'm going to do this now. You can find me at any time at my website, allegrastein.com. Email me. Again, all I ask in return for these talks is that you engage, send me your thoughts, send me your feedback, what you think of the talk, what you think of the topic, what came up for you, and to share it. So let people know that these are happening on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, that they're recorded and that they're available, and that would mean a lot. So let me dive into some of the questions that were asked. Here's a question. Hello, Crystal. Okay, starting with Julia. Julia asks, what about reconciling working from a place of service, yet needing to find some parameters that allow me not to feel regrets or guilt about saying no? So, Julia, I'd be very curious now, hopefully, that you've watched the slideshow. If it's been reframed for you a little bit. Again, if there is regrets or there's guilt, ask yourself why. Where are those feelings of guilt coming from? And it's usually coming from a place of should. Like, well, I should be doing this because there's fear around what if I don't? I'm worried about what someone else is going to feel. So before like creating parameters, I'd really want to dive into, well, why are you saying yes when you want to be saying no? And let's get in there and dig into there and try and clean that part up. So It might not be a super specific answer, but I also am hoping that the answer came to you during the talk. So I'd love to know what you think. I'm using my hands a lot. Hello. There's another comment on here. You're only 5 minutes late. I love it, Crystal. I'm so psyched that you were here. You've been really sweet and supportive through all of this, and I hope this has been a good talk for you to be at. I'm so animated. If this is the first time some of you are seeing me, you're probably like, she's got a lot of energy and she's throwing her hands around a lot. Okay, Roberto. Roberto was here last week and he also asked an awesome question. And Roberto, you can ask questions every week if you want. All of you can. You can always submit questions down below. You can even submit questions now because I'm still live at 8:35 Eastern. So feel free to add if something's come up for you. This might not be perfectly related, but what should people do when approaching a goal from a fear-driven perspective? And you've mentioned this before, from the -1 to 0 instead of 0 to 1. You can only think of trying to find the positive in it and wonder if there's anything else. So this might be a subject for another talk. Because I'd really want to ask, well, what does it mean to approach a goal from a fear-driven perspective? And I use that a lot, again, when I'm speaking with someone as well. Are you saying yes out of fear? And if that's the case, then let's figure out what you're afraid of and explore that. Or are you saying yes from a place of like excitement and enthusiasm? So I'd really want to find out, like, well, why are you picking a goal out of fear in the first place? And how can that be reframed? Or is it like an exciting kind of fear, which I call terrified and excited? Or is it a dread kind of fear, which is totally different? Oh shoot, I totally forgot to like start answering your question. Hey, click the start answer, Roberto. So do me a favor. If you've just started here and you click your question, scroll back like a minute and you'll see me like really start to answer your question. Thanks. Oh, and Julia, I didn't say done answering. Ooh. Okay. And I think I did Roberto's. Okay. Christine posted a question. Okay, let me get to Crystal. Crystal just mentions this is a popular topic today. It was talked about when I got in on the car radio. I would love to know more about what they were saying. I wish I had the energy at this time. Thanks, Crystal. I know. I get really revved up when I talk about this stuff. I love this work so much, so I can't help it. Yeah, I love that they were talking about it on the radio. I'd be curious to know more about what they said and what they shared. You can share it in the chat section too, just more on your thoughts of what came up during the radio. But thanks for sharing your comment. Christine, I have improved on waiting to respond before saying yes or no, but there are still people that I let maneuver and manipulate me into changing my mind. I know I'm doing it and haven't found a way to stop. I'm curious, Christine, and you can totally say yes or no, but there's a feature on here that will invite you into the Hangout with me, and it would be awesome to talk to you face to face. So if you are game for that, would you just type sure or no thanks in the chat window? I know there's this 20-second delay. So I'll start answering it, but I'll watch for your answer. Because if you're willing to, I'll invite you to the Hangout with me and then we can speak face to face, which is an element I really miss with these talks, by the way. I'm trying to figure a way out to solve that. So I'll watch for your answer, Christine. But in the meantime, I don't want to bring you on without permission. Although I think I can invite you and you can just decline. So I'm going to do that if that's all right. I'm going to invite you, and if you don't want to do it, just say no thanks. Invite Christine. Yeah, I'm inviting her in. Okay. So to answer your question, there are still people that I let maneuver and manipulate me into changing my mind. Well, first of all, I appreciate your language. I'm glad that you recognize that you are letting them maneuver and manipulate you into changing your mind. It still presents ownership, that you see that there is that energy happening and that you are allowing it. You're saying yes to it. You know you're doing it and haven't found a way to stop. So there are some good questions you can ask yourself about it. One is, how does it serve you by saying yes to them? Like, why is it really good for you to say yes to them? It seems a bit counterintuitive, but it honors the fact that there's a reason you're saying yes. You are saying yes ultimately because you want to. That again is where your power is. I'd rather you say, I said yes, rather than, oh, I didn't have a choice. So you said yes because you wanted to. And it might be that you want to avoid the results of saying no. So flip it a little bit. and ask yourself, like, well, what is it I'm trying to avoid by ultimately saying yes? And can that be approached in a super creative way? Christine says, oh, sure. Well, I clicked invite. I'll try one more time. I'll invite you to hang out. I've sent the invitation, so see if it came through. I hope it comes through on Crowdcast. Something should pop up, but I have my little window, and if you pop in, then I'll be able to see you. So ask yourself how it's serving you by not saying no and ultimately kind of giving into what they want and saying yes to it. And maybe explore some options in that moment. Again, it sounds like you're good at buying time. And I kind of would just be curious about what it means to say that you let them maneuver and manipulate you. Like a question that I like to ask, but is sometimes challenging, is like, well, why? How does it serve you to let yourself be manipulated? How is that easier? What would feel challenging to you? What would feel bold? What is the reason, kind of going back into the talk and asking yourself, like, what is the reason that you are saying no? What is that thing, and can it be challenged? And start from there. And as you work through these, for some reason, it's not letting you pop in. I'm not quite sure why. It's not letting you pop in. So if you do me a favor and either share more thoughts about it in the chat window on the right, and I'll be able to follow up with it even after I'm done with the live talk, or email me. Email me at allegra@allegrastein.com, and I'm more than happy to hop on the phone with you one-on-one and talk about it a little bit more, because it's a fabulous question, and it's one of those moments that I don't want to presume what you mean by the words you're saying. So I wish we could dive in one-on-one, and I'm going to try and figure out why I couldn't bring you into the Hangout. It's kind of bumming me out. So, and I didn't click start answering again. There's Christine's question. I'm sorry I botched that up. But if you're just here coming this moment, I just answered Christine's awesome question starting about 3 or 4 minutes ago. So just back up a little bit and you'll see the answer to Christine's question below. I'm sorry about that. And I finished answering my question. Are there any more? I still see a few of you are still here live. If anything has come up, feel free to pop it in the chat. Sorry, my throat's itchy. I'll wait another 20 seconds or so to make sure that I do answer any questions that have come up now. But in the meantime, if you've made it this far, send me a note directly, allegra@allegrastein.com. Let me know what you think. Feedback, questions, comments, your own experiences. I'd love to know if this has served you, if it's shaken things up a little bit, and if you have an example of something that you want to say no to and you feel more empowered to do that. I would love that. Christine! What is the reason, kind of going back into the talk? Oh, and I can hear me in the background. That you are. Hold on. Hi! Can it be challenged? There, can you pause? I don't know how to pause it. I feel like it should pause. It's funny to hear me 20 seconds in advance. Hello?
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Oh, thanks so much for hopping on live. It changes everything. Like, I do these live talks in the morning, and it's so awesome what comes up one-on-one with people. And then I'm here, and I'm like just talking into a screen. So thanks for volunteering. And for those who are watching, I appreciate you volunteering. So are you willing to tell me a little bit more just about, and you don't have to go into super detail if you'd rather not, but more about this moment when you're aware that you don't want to say no, these people are kind of coming at you and saying, yeah, you have to, like, what happens in that moment?
Well, it's, I'm sort of in a transition, so my time is a little more flexible than it has been in the past. And I have a friend who's doing some great work for charity and things like that, and needs help. And I've said yes to certain things, like being on a board and volunteering for some nights that she's done, which has been great, has been really rewarding. But it's language like, I don't have time to do this. I really need your help. I really need more support. And so even though some of these things are sort of outside of my scope and would take a little bit more time for me to invest in, which is why I'm like, no, I can't do this. But it turns into conversations where it's like, I need your help. I trust you. It really helped me out. And I just end up feeling guilt into, you know, I really appreciate that she values me this much, but at the same time, with this particular person, I'm not good at saying no, just because I understand that she does need the help and she trusts me to do it.
Mhm.
But so it goes from a no to a, all right, I'll fit it in.
Okay.
And I just,
Does this happen a lot?
not always. It's usually with the bigger things that she needs help with. If it's a smaller thing, I found that it's more often with just the language. I can't do this. I can't fit it in. I'm so stressed. And I think, well, I'm the same way too, you know.
Right.
I have things that I'm doing for my own self, or at least trying to do.
So it's kind of just like, who will hold out longer?
And it's like, well, I would like help too. And maybe that's the thing. I'm not always the best at asking for help for myself. So when someone does when someone does ask, I really want to be like, okay, I'll help you, because, you know, if I were better at asking for help myself, you know, I would want someone to respond in turn to me, you know, if they could, you know. So for me, it's just, I know it's happening. I'm just like, stick to your guns. And I'm like, and I end up giving in.
So I'm curious if when I was talking about like a no, but with options, is it possible that it's not, no, I won't help you? Is there a middle ground that if you brought it to the table with her, maybe not at a time, like have you thought about talking with her when it's not one of these hot button moments? So she's not like, I need the report not right now. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'll do it. And it's just emotional and hot. But after that, have you thought about creating a conversation with her? Because so to bring you back in your power, like how are you creating this interaction with her?
As far as,
Well, it's easy to think, well, she just keeps coming at me until I say yes. I want to try and flip it and say, well, how are you creating that relationship with her where she knows that if she keeps coming at you, you will say yes?
I guess I probably haven't been as clear with my boundaries with her, and also probably not as open as that there are things that I'm trying to do and that I'm trying to accomplish, and that her goals don't fit in with where I am. Because there is that part of me that does want to help her, and I have, you know, I've done these other things which do fit in and align. So it's not, so I haven't gone to say, you know, you're asking me to do this, but I already do these other two things that you've asked of me. And I've sort of, that's my boundary, that's my limit. So that's probably what I'll need to do. I guess part of it, the conversations later, is like you're talking about hot button, is the fact that there's still just a little bit of resentment that I can't get over. So I can't have that conversation without feeling resentful, and not just at her, but at myself.
Resentment for what?
It's not just resentment towards her for asking me, but it's resentment, like it's frustration with myself for not having stuck to my guns. Because there are other people that I'm very good at setting boundaries with, and this one particular person, I just always.
So is there a way that you could serve her without saying yes?
It's something I'm probably going to have to think about a little bit more about how, and maybe not in other or new ways, but letting her know that I've already undertaken some things she's asked me to do that I've done, and I'll continue to do. I just can't take on any more or any new projects. Sorry, you're muted.
Hear me now?
I can hear you now. Okay.
Oh, I took you out of my headphones. Let me see if this works again. Hold on. And now, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, that was so strange. So, okay, so what if, so let's look at it from her perspective. She's over there, she gets into this hot button moment, and she thinks, oh, Christina's the one that's gonna help me, Christina help me, Christina help me. That's her thought process. So she comes to you, you say no, she's like, oh, but you gotta, right? Is there something that can happen before that moment? Maybe some brainstorming with her, maybe something creative. So again, not in this moment of craziness when it's like on demand, but creating a conversation with her where you serve her by coming up with alternatives. Instead of her thinking, oh, I have a problem, go to Christine, maybe there are some alternative solutions so that she doesn't get so panicked. Like, is there a way to serve her in this while also honoring your boundaries that you want to establish for her? So you don't feel like, well, I just have to say no to helping her, because I can tell you're a helpful person. So it's this challenge that I kind of suggested in the talk is, can you be helpful and serve her and still stick with your boundaries of saying no? How would that be a good thing for her?
It's something I'm going to have to sit and think about some more, because that's sort of how I got into this position was, we, through conversations, and I was like, I'll be glad, to help you with some of the small things that are coming up, and I did say, some of the small things, some of the little things, but it's turned into a huge thing versus, just the insignificant tasks that would take up those 5, 10, 15 minutes where you could, dedicate her time better to something else, where she didn't have to do the administrative portions or those time sucks for her, which doesn't allow her to focus on the big projects. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the initial intent and goal when we were talking about it. And instead of, hey, there's, can you proofread this ad for me? Or can you look at this blog post for me and do some editing? Those things to, well, there's this big project that needs to be handled, and because I have other big projects.
Got it. I asked this before, I'm not sure if is this a volunteer thing or is this in work?
This is volunteer.
Okay, so this is still, so are there other volunteers?
She has had some other volunteers and an intern to help her out.
Okay.
Probably not as much as help as she could use or really needs.
Right.
And so
what if you approached her from that kind of space? Like, hey, Sally, I notice every time a project comes up, I can totally see what's happening. You're getting overwhelmed with projects. Have you thought of, and then it's hard for me to help you fully 100% because I want to be able to help you 100% with that projects that we're working on. What if we try to bring someone else in here?
Well, I think that'd probably be a really good option. I'm actually hoping that she'll take on another intern again.
But could you help her create that?
I'd like to help her create the thought. I don't want to be a part of the process for it.
Okay.
So, and that's sort of the reason why I've kept my mouth shut for a little bit, is because I feel like when I approach her when we're talking, it's like, oh, you're on the train with me. And I'm like, no, I'm running parallel to you, but I don't want to be on that train. I'm on this train over here.
Mhm.
And so to talk with her about that, I don't want to get wrapped up in that. So I don't know, you've given me a lot to think about, some good approaches, but I'll have to think about how I can, because I do want to help her. That's never been the question. It's the scope of the help that she wants and she needs. She and I don't align on those two. You know, I'm looking for smaller, insignificant projects that will be beneficial to her, that don't derail me from my goals and desires, without getting wrapped up in the bigger things that it seems that she needs.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna send you.
I'm gonna send you an audio.
I don't know if you have a.
I don't know if you have a
echoing.
echoing.
I'm gonna send you an
I'm gonna
audio.
send you
It's
an audio. It's
called
called
Expectations
Expectations
versus
versus
Agreements.
Agreements.
It's by a coach
By
I follow.
a coach I follow,
Chandler,
Chandler,
and his work is
and
amazing.
his work is amazing.
He talks about that
talks about
clear
that
difference
clear
between an
difference
expectation and agreement.
Expectation and
An
agreement.
expectation is like this silent bar that we hold someone to, and we never tell them that they're held to it. I'm just like, well, no, I expect this of you. And then when they don't do the thing, we get angry and we push back, and they're like, why are you angry and upset? Well, because you're not meeting my expectation. I never agreed to do it. You have this expectation of me. I never agreed to it. The opposite is the agreement. An agreement is when you say, here's my idea. You can say yes, no, or renegotiate it. That person says, okay, no, let's renegotiate this. You go back and forth. In the end, you say, here's a structure. Do we both agree to it? Great.
that sounds really good.
So what I'm hearing is that she has
expectations
of you that you have not agreed to.
Yes.
Maybe silently, because in the end, you say yes. So she thinks, oh, she's in agreement. This is no problem.
And that's true. And I can see where I haven't followed through by being clear about, okay,
What
you
you're
said
willing to agree.
Yeah. So
what would you think, or would you consider the possibility of setting up a conversation with her? Not during one of these hotbed moments when a lot of stuff is due, but when going out to lunch, tea, like something a little out of the moment, saying, here's what's happening. I'm feeling a lot of conflict when you get really busy because I want to help you. And I have a lot of other big projects I'm working on. And when you ask me to help you with these big things, I want to help you, so I end up saying yes. It's not helping our bottom line ultimately. Because we're both trying to serve this company that we're working for, and I'm wondering if we can create some agreements about the projects that we partner.
Yeah. I think it's something I'm going to have to do.
You could do it.
Yeah, I could.
And approach it from a place of, you don't necessarily have to say it explicitly, but the alternative is for you to do this stuff for her and just keep building your resentment and anger.
And that's what I don't want to do.
Well, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Because that whole thing I was saying before, it's like you're lying to her and saying yes. You really want to say no. And not because you're not a helpful person.
Yeah. Very true.
So maybe brainstorm just on your own, like, what are some, the project, the work you've been doing, saying, okay, if you have something that needs help that is going to require more than an hour of my time, we agree to get an intern.
Mm-hmm.
Can we agree to get an intern for these kinds of things? Or whatever, the project better.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to brainstorm on that. I'll have to think about that.
Okay. And I'll
Thank
send you
you.
the
I'll
audio.
send you the audio.
Oh, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure if for some reason I haven't, tomorrow passes, you haven't heard from me, just send me a note.
Send me a
Where's
note.
that audio?
Where's that audio?
Okay, that's great.
Okay, great.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for hopping
much
on
for
with
hopping
me.
on with me.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I do hear that.
I do here.
All right, I'm
Right.
gonna.
I'm
I'm
gonna.
not quite sure. I think
Not
you
quite
have
sure.
to
I
be the
think
one.
you have to be the one.
Let's see.
Awesome. All right, thanks. Well, thanks to all of you who've been here. It's odd, like I feel like I can't see who's viewing, which kind of bugs me. I think I need to like ask them about that. I can see my, just not quite sure who they are. It's interesting. I see who's like signed on, but I can't really tell who's here. So thanks to those of you who are still watching. Thanks to Christine for hopping on live with me. You've all been awesome. Let me know what comes of watching this, and if you choose to say no to a few things and re-examine that stuff, and what actions you take this week and how that all pans out. I hope to see you next Wednesday, same time. I might play with a different platform. I might try something called Zoom so that I can see all your awesome faces and have a bit more engagement. But this has been great. Thank you. Feel free to share and spread the word, and I'll catch you next week.